It's the Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White, and it's episode 380. Welcome to the week of 21 April 2024. We've got Roboflies, CRUSHFTP, GitHub, Palo Alto, MITRE, Fancy Bear, Deepfakes, Aaran Leyland, and more stories on this edition of the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News.
Hi, folks. I'm Adrian Sanabria, the host of Enterprise Security Weekly. Every week, we interview the most interesting folks we can find, talking about the most pressing cybersecurity issues and challenges facing the enterprise today. Myself and my co-hosts have each been in the industry for decades, long enough to see the patterns in the industry and explore where trends are going. In addition to enterprise challenges, we also follow the vendor space, the most interesting security startups emerging, technology and product trends, all the most interesting funding and acquisition announcements. Finally, we love to discuss the latest trends in tech and how they'll impact cybersecurity. If you're wondering how the latest in AI, quantum computing, cloud, and DevOps is going to impact security a few years down the road, you should follow the Enterprise Security Weekly podcast.
All right, it's the Security Weekly News from exile on the island of Elba. I'm Doug White, and welcome to the show. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button on your favorite platform because, well, it makes me feel like I have value. And to all my fans I met on Sunday, thanks for listening. We appreciate you. All right. CRUSHFTP issued a warning today that there's an active 0-day in their product, which is FTP serving, I suppose. That 0-day enables unauthenticated attackers to escape the virtual file system and download any of your system files from your server, which would include comps, robot files, all that good stuff. The 0-day was reported by Airbus CERT and is now fixed in versions 10.7.1 and 11.1.0. They basically seem to be focused on versions 9 and earlier. So, basically, if you set up your file servers and, you want to set them up correctly, well, you use some kind of tool, which is called a root jail or some kind of jail that creates a virtual file structure that looks pretty much like it's a live file structure, but the ones I used to set up look pretty much just like the regular directory structure, but it was completely isolated to that person. And yeah, I know there's ways to break all that stuff, but it's a lot harder. And it's really just a partition. And I guess the ideal in FTP serving was to set that up for every single user. So each user had their own file structure. And of course, you could share directories or whatever. So if people were sharing files. Now, if you have anonymous file servers, does anybody still do that? I'm sure they do, because sometimes you do need to serve people files that are anonymous. They don't want people to log in and whatnot. And if you do, you're probably using virtual file structures, or you probably get compromised a lot. So basically, this problem combines all this stuff so that you have virtual directory structures and you still get compromised a lot. So CrowdStrike said that Falcon Overwatch and Falcon Intelligence, which is their intel groups, have been seeing this CRUSHFTP 0-day being exploited in the wild, and that the threat actors are targeting CRUSHFTP servers at multiple U.S. organizations, with the evidence pointing that it's an intelligence gathering campaign. The recommendation is, of course, that CRUSHFTP users should follow the vendor's instructions and prioritize patching this. They did have some information in this article that said that if you had a DMZ network in front of the main instance, it should be protected. I didn't really follow that. I mean, I understand what a DMZ is, and I've put plenty of them up, and your file servers and everything should be in DMZs. Particularly, they should be isolated even from each other. But I'm not sure why that would prevent somebody from having this kind of access. I'm sure some of you will figure that out as well. But maybe it's something to do with a VPN that connects into a DMZ. I'm just really not sure. But regardless of that, if you have older versions of CRUSHFTP server, you should very likely patch. And even if you're just using the client side of that, you probably should check it out to make sure. Shodan said that there are at least 2,700 CRUSHFTP instances with exposed web interfaces currently online. They said they could not determine how many of those had been patched, but 1,375 of those were in the United States, which was the largest group, and 257 in Germany was the second most. So look, 1,375 of you in the United States have this. So fix it today, really. GitHub file upload is being abused, and attackers are using a new Lua malware loader, which is distributed through what appears to be a legitimate Microsoft GitHub repository. And apparently they can't get rid of it. And I'll tell you why in a second. This was in the repository for the C++ library manager for Windows, Linux, and Mac OS, which is called VC Package, if you have ever worked with that. It's also the STL library. So that's the two components that people use in C++. Now, it was a mystery because Bleeping Computer said they were shocked that this malware was still being distributed via the Microsoft GitHub, and it was a legitimate Microsoft GitHub repository, and they couldn't figure out where the malware actually was. They deconstructed VC Package, and they said they couldn't find anything. But what they did find was that if a GitHub user starts a comment, not post a comment even, but just starts a comment, well, you can attach a file to that, right? Because you see the comments on these things saying attach, error logs or whatever. And once that file is attached to the comment that's been started, it's uploaded the CDN, and then it's associated with that project and assigned a unique URL that attaches to that file. Now, GitHub doesn't generate the URL until after the comment is posted, but it generates a download link the minute you add the file to an unsaved comment. And then you can, of course, attach whatever you want to that comment. And so people were attaching malware to it. Now, if you put malware in a comment section on most sites, the minute somebody realizes it's malware, they will take your comments down. But in this case, it's quite interesting because the file in the unsaved comment gets uploaded and housed on that CDN. And so even if you never actually post the comment, because it's an unsaved comment, or you post it and then delete it, the file's still there on their server. And you can hand out links to it because the link was already generated. And so the owner of the repository has no way to see that there's anything there. And it seems to be quite a problem. Unpack Me did a live stream about this on Twitch, and they said that the tactic was being actively exploited in the wild. An update on the article said that the malware on the Microsoft repository had been removed, meaning I guess those links have been taken down, but there are the files deleted or something. But there are others that are out there, and of course, obviously, putting that right back on the Microsoft link wouldn't be very difficult since that feature seems to still work. But they were noting active malware links on the HTTP router and AMI as well. So scary stuff when you're downloading repositories these days. Palo Alto Firewall's PAN-OS first released that there was an issue on the 12th of April, and we've talked about it quite a bit. But Unit 42, which is the Palo Alto Threat Intelligence Team, updated this brief to include information on the current scope of the attacks, which are targeting the critical command injection vulnerability that we've talked about repeatedly. The problem is in PAN-OS Global Protect, and it has a CVSS score of 10, and it was originally seen in an attack by a likely state-sponsored attacker called UTA0218 per Velexity. Unit 42 says it is aware of an increasing number of attacks after the proof of concept exploits were published last week. Imagine that. Shocking news that the minute they put out proof of concepts with code, people start exploiting it. They went on and said that the new attacks were apparently unrelated to the original UTA0218 campaign. And I mean, it makes total sense to me. It's like there's a proof of concept out there. Everybody's jumping on board. But as of Monday, Shadow Server reported that there were 6,200 Global Protect instances up that were vulnerable to this attack. So just like that other stuff, there's a lot of servers sitting out there that are vulnerable and have not been patched. The vulnerability is patchable at this point, and there are hot fixes for other betas, I guess, and the patches were all rolled out between the 15th of April and the 18th of April. The article does have a full review of how the flaws allow command injection on the platform, or how you can get the proof of concepts as well if you want them. If you have one of those 6,200 instances, though, let's get to work and get that down to zero pretty quick, okay? Because this stuff is incredibly dangerous. Well, we all get breached. You may like to tell yourself that you won't, but you will. I'm the same way. I'm always like, well, yeah, this is all nice and safe, and then somebody takes it out. MITRE. So MITRE Corporation disclosed that one of their unclassified research and prototyping networks was breached by an undisclosed nation state. The Post said that in January, the attacker performed reconnaissance of the networks and then exploited one of their VPNs using, wait for it, Ivanti Connect Secure. Yeah, those things have been around a while. The report said that the attacker got past the multi-factor authentication using session hijacking, which makes sense, and then they moved laterally to dig into the VMware infrastructure using a compromised admin account. So it wasn't just all Avanti. It was like a collection of things. But these are nation states, right? They have whole teams. I mean, we know that. I mean, companies have teams. Nation states have teams. Hacking clubs in middle school have teams. And they work night and day to find these things. Once they got in, they deployed Trojans and web shells to maintain their persistence and harvest more credentials. Those two vulnerabilities were CVSS 8.2 and 9.1, and there was an episode of Paul's Security Weekly a couple of weeks ago that I was on, where they were talking about, how dangerous it is to, use CVSS scores as anything more than just guidance. And, companies were saying we don't patch below this level and whatever, but these were two that you could use together with other things and create, basically real problems. But basically, those vulnerabilities allow attackers to bypass authentication and execute arbitrary commands, which is, of course, really problematic. The last time MITRE had a announced breach was 15 years ago, and that led them to develop the confusingly named MITRE, however you say it. I think you're supposed to say attack. I met with MITRE, and MITRE was saying attack, but, it's ATT ampersand CK, or the artist formerly known as Dr. Gonzo, or something. One of those unpronounceable words, like, I just find it confusing. But I'm going to change my name to Pork Soda and just be the professor who used to be known as Doug. But, make them put that on my door. But anyway, the moral of the story is that even you may get breached, despite all your knowledge, dear listener. And will you be ready when the sirens wail and you hear the voices of angry men? If this was a bad TV show, then the music would swell, and Aaron and I would jump in and sing One Day More as a duet, and everybody would be crying by the end of the show. And they're not crying out of sadness, mind you, but at least that's how it seems in my head. And leave me alone. I mean, that's the way I was seeing it. It just didn't quite turn out that way. Well, back in my day, the neighborhood watch was Gladys Kravitz trying to tell everybody that the people next door were witches. Oh, and Paul Lynde was there, and she was probably trying to warn people about Paul Lynde, but, classic. But sometimes later it became this thing that involved people signing up to, I guess, watch the neighborhood. I remember my dad came home with all this stuff, and he's like I don't know what, sit up all night with binoculars, ensuring that, there's not any stray dogs around or something. I have mixed feelings about it. I mean, it seems like kind of an interesting idea, but then there's all that, there's stuff where there's people that aren't really good people doing that. Yeah, anyway. But anyway, in the UK, the neighborhood with a U, the neighborhood watch, the neighborhood watch groups had an issue since they were using this product called ViSave, which is a Nottingham-based company, and everything's cooler when it comes from Nottingham. But it was a Nottingham-based company that makes a product called Neighborhood with a U Alert. It's a platform that allows allegedly allows secure messaging between registered watch groups and authorized admins. So this is kind of like a fusion center or something, right? So I see something in my neighborhood, I post it, and then other people can see the same thing. Now, you can access this thing with a website or a mobile app, and it was endorsed by the national and regional authorities in the UK and has about 500,000 users, according to their website. But in late March, a user reported that a security issue would allow anyone to register as a neighborhood watch coordinator on the platform. And if they did that, they could create their own scheme. Now, I was like, that's not a good word to use in a security program to me. It's like, it's a scheme, but the scheme they're talking about is a defined area on the map. So once you create yourself as a fake admin, let's call that admin Abner, not Lenny Kravitz, but Abner Kravitz. And Abner logs in, defines themselves as a neighborhood watch coordinator, and then creates a scheme, drags over the map of some area. I don't know. It was any area you wanted within reason. And once you did that, it revealed all the neighborhood watch people in that area. And when they revealed them, they could see on the map where they live because that's what they put in. But it also revealed all kinds of information. And so they were testing this, and they found that you could see their registered emails, and a lot of them were official emails, and that these people included police officers and ministers of parliament. Yeah, so this would pretty much allow someone with ill intent or good intent to find out where somebody lives, like a police officer, which is not a good thing. The issue was disclosed to the registered users on the 15th, and they said that the anomaly had been fixed immediately, but it's really, really scary. Did anybody get those references? Bewitched? Really? Nobody? Bueller? Nobody? Classic television. All right. It was originally in black and white. It was so old. I mean, the first episodes of it are in black and white. And Samantha's husband changed actors after a bit because the first one, I could never keep their names straight, but the first one got some kind of horrible back injury and couldn't go on. So they just, it's just like a different guy next season, but that's okay. It's television. Fancy Bear, yay, Fancy Bear, which is APT 28, have been weaponizing a flaw in the Windows print spooler, that thing again. And they delivered some custom malware called Goose Egg. Now, Microsoft patched this flaw, wait for it, in October of 2022. And the NSA was the original reporting agency that found this print spooler flaw. And I mean, we talked about this stuff long ago. But Fancy Bear used the flaw to target Ukrainian, Western European, and North American government, non-government, education, transportation, yeah, pretty much everybody. Basically, what this does is the flaw allows them to modify a JavaScript constraints file, and then they can execute the file with system-level permissions, which is very painful. Goose Egg is pretty much just a simple launcher, but of course, it can spawn other applications at the system level. And that, means you can run just about anything, and you can set that at the command line and run with elevated privilege, which allows the attacker to pretty much do whatever they want, right? So they were conducting remote code execution. They installed rats. They can move through the network and so forth. Fancy Bear has been active for at least 15 years and operates with backing from the Russian government and is geared toward the collection of support of Russian foreign policy initiatives. So basically, they're a spy agency. So in my day, that was called the KGB or something, but they're basically a digital spy group. The Goose Egg attacks allowed them to gain access to these networks and steal credentials, which of course lets them have more access, which allows them to steal more credentials and install more rats. The next thing you know, Augusta De Morgan and Jonathan Swift show up and stick their fingers in your mouth. Can you imagine what fingers in the 17th century must have smelled like and tasted like? I can watch Art the Clown cut someone in half with a chainsaw while I eat a big plate of pasta, but a sex scene set in the 18th century, I literally have to look away. I'm like, oh, he just licked their neck. Oh my God. When did you wash your neck last time? Spring? Yeah, that kind of thing. Anywho, the point again is that there's a lot of stuff out there in your enterprise, and some of it's old. I mean, I've never been in an enterprise audit yet where we didn't find old stuff. I mean, is that copier you've got sitting in there running Windows NT, Dr. Fang's Fortran code that controls the death ray is running on DOS 5.2 or something? It's all out there. Schools, water departments, homes, probably even your enterprise is all got old code somewhere. Maybe yours doesn't, but a lot of people's do. You really need to find these things in your asset search. And if you want to keep them, you should protect them heavily or patch them if you can, although a lot of them are, end of life and so forth. Because when Fancy Bear comes a calling, what the hell rhymes with that? Who am I? Ice-T? I don't have any rhymes. How do you rhyme something with call and fallen? I'm not even going to go there. But you do need to identify and patch or Fancy Bear or Cozy Bear or Tox Octopus or Stinky Cat or Garbage Man or whoever it is with a cool name will be looking for it with Showdown probably, and they'll find it. So, you don't want to find all your flaws the hard way by having to issue breach reports. Yeah. Well, you know how they make all those cool movies and shows that they couldn't make previously due to effects? I mean, George Lucas had to make all of his battle scenes in space out of old World War One movies. I mean, literally, and just they took like the old film and they turned that into spaceships and stuff. Well, those days are gone, right? We're all familiar with that. I mean, AI is starting to permeate everything, like the smell of that slowly percolating dead rat in your apartment wall or whatever, or Augustus de Morgan's fingers. Well, it's going to have some major impacts, and they're coming soon to a theater near you. So this guy named Devyendra Singh Jadun is a famous Bollywood effects guy who is called the Indian Deepfaker. And I guess everybody's trying to hire him for the upcoming elections in India. And he said, he was being interviewed in this article, he said that more than half the calls he gets are asking for unethical things like competitors making gaffes or having candidates' faces injected into porn scenes and all kinds of stuff like that. He did say he, of course, doesn't take those jobs. But he went on and said some campaigns were also even having low-quality deep fakes made of their own candidates so that if deep fakes of their candidate or real not fakes get released of their candidates doing inappropriate things, they can then dump these low-quality deep fakes. They go, oh, yeah, it's all fake. It's all fake. None of it's real. Fake news, fake news. I mean, it's really difficult now to tell a deep fake from a real pic or a video. And just like Hollywood and Bollywood make films and shows with talking raccoons or Karen Gillan as Nebula. I mean, I didn't even know that was Karen Gillan for a long time. And then I was like, wow, really? Because she doesn't actually look like that. But, we can take candidate X, let's call him Dan Snorkel, and portray him in heroic scenes fighting off communist hobo chuds in the sewers of San Francisco. Or how about we show a video of Dan Snorkel's opponent, Mark Gabnagel, smoking radioactive crack cocaine with William Burroughs and Fidel Castro, or that other candidate, Marion Flockwort, at a peanut butter fetish club with the leader of the local biker gang, the Gibbons. I mean, it's all possible, right? And it's not even that hard to do. I mean, this stuff's available now in even freeware formats. And so people are doing this. There's all kind of issues now coming up with people with these what they call nudification applications, where they take a photograph of somebody, like some girl at their school or some guy at their school, and these AI strip their clothing off and replaces it with, I don't know, some kind of fictional naughty bits. I'm not exactly sure, but this stuff is devastating to a lot of people. And guess what? Foreign nation states are working hard to promote their agendas in elections abroad. Out of their countries and get the candidates they like best elected. And it's getting really hard to tell what's true and what's false. I mean, it was always hard, but now it's almost impossible. Fake endorsements of candidates. Hi, I'm Hugh Jackman, and I'm supporting Shaddam Carino IV for Emperor of a kinder, gentler Australia. I'm not even going to try to do an Australian accent because Australians get all worked up when I do that. But the content has been particularly focused as well on attacking female candidates for office. A lot of times they inject them into porn films and then say, this is what they were doing before they ran for office and stuff like that. Some U.S. states have now passed laws with fines if you don't disclose AI and political ads. Yeah, that'll stop them. And Michigan has a law now which can punish individuals for circulation or recirculation of AI deepfakes within 90 days of an election. So these laws are just getting set up so that they can indict people that are doing this and actually take some kind of action, because it wasn't illegal. It's like old day hacking stuff where they're going, well, you did break in and launch all the nuclear weapons, but there's not a law against that. So, well, I guess you're free to go, son. I mean, I don't know what to do. I presume we're going to see a lot of this in the coming U.S. presidential mayhem in the United States. It's an election year in the U.S., and I'm sure a lot of people both at home or abroad are frantically trying to figure out how to make the candidate they want seem likable, even though they did eat that baby on TV. But do female voters in the 30 to 40 age range respond well to a picture of Marco, the baby eater Skritek, with a child? But we will use AI to generate the child so that Marco doesn't eat it while we're doing the photo shoot. It's scary times, I'm telling you. Well, we were somewhere around Barstow on the edge of the desert when the drugs began to take hold, and suddenly there was a terrible roar, and all around us, the sky was full of what looked like huge bats, all swooping and screeching and diving around the car. And I turned and said, I feel a bit lightheaded, Aaron. Maybe you should drive. So please welcome to the New York stage, Aaran Leyland.
And I said, I can't drive because I'm really busy, doing stuff that you shouldn't do while you're driving.
Like ether.
Okay, I need to bang into this one today. I've got too many words. Okay, this
All right.
article from the Register highlights my biggest concern in cybersecurity and geopolitics. So I'm going to give you parts of the article verbatim and then my thoughts. So the article is China creates information support force to improve network defense capabilities. Don't come after me, China. I'm only telling the story. I didn't do the bad stuff. So, China last week reorganized its military to create an information support force aimed at ensuring it can fight and win networked wars. President Xi Jinping formally established the Information Support Force, ISF, not a Chinese abbreviation, by the way, by handing a flag to its commanders at the ceremony last Friday. According to an account of his speech posted on the Ministry of Defense website, because they always tell the truth, declared the new entity is necessary if the People's Liberation Army is capable of winning modern wars. The ISF will therefore build a network information system that meets the requirements of modern warfare and has the characteristics of our military and promote the accelerated improvement of the system's combat capabilities with high quality. The establishment of the ISF gives both the cyberspace and the aerospace capabilities of China's current strategic support force a new shared home. How pretty. Beijing has positioned the establishment of the ISF as an essential modernization. Xi has previously said 2027 will be a milestone year for China's military as it will mark the 100th anniversary of the PLA itself. Watch out, people. They might be coming. The ISF will be managed by China's Central Military Commission, which Xi is chair. It's no accident that he is overseeing the new force. His doctrines call for China to develop military strength in all domains. Whatever happened to de-escalation, guys? Just what ISF will do wasn't discussed, as one would expect. That's what they talked about in the article. They say militaries around the world have long realized that communication is critical on the modern battlefield, so this development is hardly surprising. On the other hand, China is already regarded as very comfortable using networks to hurt its rivals. FBI Director Christopher Wray last week labeled China a broad and unrelenting threat on grounds that its cyber operatives constantly target US infrastructure. More on that in a minute. China has the ability to physically wreak havoc on our critical infrastructure at a time of its choosing. And he told that to the Vanderbilt Summit on Modern Conflict and Emerging Threats in Nashville. We should really listen to this guy. He's talking the truth. He goes on to say China's hacking program is larger than that of every other major nation combined. It's just ridiculous, right? Ray warned, and that size advantage is only magnified by the military and intelligence services growing use of artificial intelligence, my favorite subject, built in large part on the innovation and data stolen from us to enhance its hacking operations, including to steal yet more tech and data. That's what he went on to say. Ray revealed that the FBI's response to China's activities see it work with the US's own military entity to devote it to information warfare. The Cyber Command, as part of those operations, he said, were often sharing targeting and other information with partners like US Cyber Command, foreign law enforcement agencies, the CIA, and others. When it comes to both nation state and criminal cyber threats, we plan operations with our sights set on the elements we know from experience make hacking groups tick. Okay, from me, Aaron, the issue of intellectual property theft by China is a significant concern in the realm of cybersecurity and international trade. It has been, and I've read this many times, seen it all over the place, characterized as one of the largest transfers of wealth in human history due to the scale and impact of these activities. So here's some key points which should reinforce all of this, and as we work to combat this interference. Fighting a losing battle. Economic impact. The United States Trade Representative estimates that China IP theft costs the U.S. economy between 225 billion and 600 billion annually. This theft includes a wide range of industries from technology to pharmaceuticals, affecting both the economic and competitive landscapes. Then, technology and military concerns. The theft of IP is not limited to commercial interests, but extends to military and strategic domains. China's policy, and you should look into this, military civil fusion, requires that technology with dual military and commercial uses must be transferred on demand from Chinese firms to the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, as well as to other identities deemed suitable by the Chinese government. Then innovation and competition. While China has a long-standing policies to extract IP from Western companies, actual government policies, right? The real issue extends beyond IP theft, includes the unfair treatment of US companies in China, the creation of a protected Chinese market, subsidies for foreign sales, and the imposition of non-tariff barriers that hamper Western competition. And then legal and regulatory actions. The US Department of Justice reports that 80% of its economic espionage cases involve China, highlighting the ongoing efforts to combat IP theft legally. There are documented cases of trade secret theft across various sectors, underscoring the need for robust cybersecurity measures and vigilance. Then, as I mentioned before, global wealth transfer. The former NSA director has referred to the Chinese theft of American IP as the greatest transfer of wealth in history, likely costing the US upwards of 400 billion per year. This transfer has significant implications for global economic power dynamics. So, in conclusion, the interplay between China's political system and the intellectual property theft is a multifaceted issue that has led to significant economic and strategic consequences. The structure of China's political economy inherently discourages homegrown innovation, fostering an environment where acquisition and just literally imitation of foreign IP are prevalent. This has been a persistent challenge for US policymakers and business leaders. In response to domestic and international pressures, China has initiated reforms to its IP rights system since 2015, aiming to better protect and stimulate innovation. So the FBI has highlighted China as a primary actor in IP theft, particularly targeting US universities. Dr. Doug, get your security head on. As vulnerable points for economic espionage, the agency has been proactive in its outreach to academic institutions, briefing administrators and warning of the risks associated with Chinese researchers connected to these thefts. Through seminars and information sessions, the FBI seeks to curb the theft of technology and trade secrets, which not only affects the competitive edge of the US and the rest of the world, to be fair, industries, but also poses a threat to national security. So to me, this is not a US centric problem. When you look at this around the world, it would blow your mind on an undecillion level. We are not nearly doing enough. So back to the man who invented undecillion, Dr. Doug in his snazzy home studio.
Yay. Thank you, Aaron. Undecillion squared. And finally, you want an ornithopter. I want an ornithopter. We all want an ornithopter. I mean, come on, right? I mean, and as long as people were building wacky devices to try and fly, and most of them went splat, they started with bird wings and insect wings, right? Because it was obvious to them. I mean, later we found other ways to do that using physics, but in the short run, people were just trying all kinds of goofy stuff. But I don't think anybody ever went for the beetle wings, like a ladybug wings or something. But you never know. Somebody probably tried it. And, those giant dragonflies, you see those things by the Changjiang River, Qingqings. those things could hover, zip around, up, down, amazing. Ornithopters. I mean, that's what they look like, right? But we can't build an ornithopter. I mean, we can't even get all the chuds out of the sewer in but an ornithopter, nah. Anyway, it's in the good case for AI. So this was an article about how AI can help us. The problem was understanding the hinge mechanics of insect wings. And that's just been a problem. I mean, insects do it just fine, but we haven't been able to duplicate that. So this study described it as, quote, the insect wing hinge is arguably among the most sophisticated and evolutionary important skeletal structures in the natural world. Some insects can actually fly at 33 miles per hour, which is pretty good for something the size of a dragonfly with a brain the size of a pinhead. I mean, the study then, they took 72,219 wing beats of flies using 485 flight sequences from 82 different flies. And then they used that to train their machine learning. No flies were harmed in making this fly research. Well, they probably were, but they're flies. So using this and the 12 steering muscles in 4 groups to control the wing motion, the ML was used to figure out how the wing muscles were being used and when and in what patterns they were being used to do various and sundry aerobatics that flies were able to do. So, yeah. Now, this will, of course, then let them develop a model and maybe develop flying robots that use methods more like flies and dragonflies to fly around instead of rotors and such, like, we typically have. So ornithopters, right? Well, you never know. But maybe we'll get one when they come out. But more likely what we're going to have is robot flies buzzing around our heads and telling us to vote Beeblebrox, and robot flies to kill the other robot flies, and more anti-robot flies. And, well, you get the idea, August in Oregon. But roboflyswatter.com, IPO at $2 a share and sell at $60 a month later. We'll all be rich, I tells you. Anyway, from the island of Elba, that is the news. I'm Doug White. Thank you, Aaron, and we will see you Friday on the Security Weekly News.